I'm going to tell you what I think we're dealing with these yids. The aristocracy in England has produced a couple of um, spirited and noteworthy sandbaggers who have led the pack in articulation of the indecencies being visited on the people of Gaza, which are an enormity, a crime of crimes, an eternal outrage. But they are English and they believe in the aristocracy of talent, and they therefore, almost by law, hotwire around some of the most important matters because much of the power for this enormity is issuing from the United States of America. One of the only really effective speakers occasionally that America has produced is Paula Bay. She's a stand-up comedian who does not see anything funny in tragedy being exhibited in the soul of our country. And what the English George Galloway and Owen Jones cannot understand is the way that comic book art took over our country with the assassination of Kennedy and King. So therefore, they don't look for comic book art as the glorification of the way we were dislocated. They try to find their way back to something that makes some kind of sense. Then it's not there. I'll give you what I think is the Yids program. And of course, they have accomplices and people like, if I happen to say his name is Donald Trump, but whenever I refer to someone as Toon, that's who I mean. Now, on the cover of Bobby Kennedy's The Enemy Within, on the paperback, there's a cadaverous arm, which should, if he was not lying to himself and trained to lie to himself in the way that Owen Jones and George Galloway are trained to lie to themselves when all of the evidence is being rubbed in their faces, he would have been concerned because it is too suggestive of The Exorcist. Now, there were huge pickets at The Exorcist talking about devil worshipping, and it turned into the fundamentalist crusade against liberals that found the Texas school book planted on me when a satirical union girl seduced me as I was being battered and tortured. And Jay Inslee and his crowd said, well, which one are people going to wonder about? That you were sticking it in or that you were tortured? I was just a child. I was given no recourse but to allow myself to be used. They did not give me a choice. It was Pittsburgh's parochial public education system. All of the teachers knew. All of the police knew. The principal knew. I believe people in my family knew. They were not going to let me get away. They tortured me. And Jay Inslee says, but what do they care about here is whether you were sticking it in. A 13-year-old boy, severely traumatized and inebriated, taken to an unknown adult lady's house because she wanted to use him. Jay Inslee says, oh, wow, where do I get out my proboscis? I want to suck on some of that. And Owen Jones and George Galloway backed that up with tall stories about the great philosophy of Yoko Ono. But Gail Burstyn is a name from The Exorcist. Reagan is a name from The Exorcist. Casper signifies the friendly ghost of Adolf Hitler. It was used on me as a child. If you look at the web that surrounded the murder of JFK. You find the Carousel Club, people like Gail Raven and Jack Ruby and Henry Wade from Roe versus Wade. And which is like death row versus Henry Wade. And what you have is a platform of making abortion out to be the enemy within. You think that God in your belly is the enemy within because you're possessed by the devil and so on. And this is the jackal grip that Nosferatu, who got over the collective subconscious of the United States of America, because these were his minions. Gail Carolyn Burston was his minion, and they were working with, not against, with Ronald Reagan. Reagan staged and faked the assassination attempt. Well, money is more important to George Galloway and Owen Jones than the truth. Money is more important. This is a big wheel jackpot at the Ringo Casino. When they pulling it up and spin, Reagan didn't know, Reagan didn't know, Reagan didn't know. Ah, we win, we win. It goes against the evidence. They're siding with Hitler because Hitler gave them a way out. He gave them a way. Wouldn't you rather be able to pretend? Remember in Casablanca, for your sake, I let them pretend. This is ingrained in the studio system of the art. So what we're dealing with is the enemy within. And what they had in mind was just to tax and spend to create wars, where there are important people. And that they stress, there are these important people. You want to try to become important. All the schools have honors guilds where you can fight to try to become important. But that's your goal. You must try to become important. And the people at the bottom should be deprived and put into a food fight. And the Black Panthers gloat, and the KKK gloats and slap five with the Black Panthers. Because none of the squirmy little Egypt people are going to be able to master the understanding of what's being done to them before they make off with the stolen money. And they steal from museums and sit around saying, well, the museum misappropriated it from another culture. Therefore, we're not really stealing it, we're reappropriating it. And the person reappropriating for Seattle's apparatus in Pittsburgh with Donald Toon is a Zionist. So he misappropriates sacred the honorary the African ancestral legacy pilfers from the Mellon Money Museum, and he becomes himself an honorary the African ancestor warrior. So the Star of David, like the swastika, is now officially an honorary the sacred the ancestor symbol. And this is all nutbag stuff as a result of complete unplugging of the American system of educated Democratic leadership that was in the works with Kennedy and King. And you can't redesign what history has created. We're stuck with this emerging cartoon comic book government and these sandbagger weenies. If we listen to George Galloway and Owen Jones, God bless them both for what they've tried to do. We will fail to comprehend what really happened. We will fail to be leaders in the United States of America. They cannot be credited. It's absolutely ridiculous what King Crimson pulled with James Curry in Pittsburgh. Absolutely ridiculous. They had George Bush drawing a line in the sand. On the other side of that sand is anything we imagine the enemy within Jimmy Curry could possibly be capable of. And they got Oliver Stone. He called himself Medicine Man. He blows up the USSR when I said something about Iowa becomes dust in one of my poems. And he blows up the Jackson Labs. And he does 911. He's doing this for the Burston people, for the enemy within. They're like, yeehaw, yeehaw. We're gonna act out the enemy within. And he's acting out. He wants to get over the line in the sand, the queer ball. and they were calling me a lapper and saying lick the lobe nut. The Zionists were. And they had a girl who I at the time really loved, and we were passionate, and I let her virginity stay intact. We were very passionate. We had um, I'm trying to think of the romantic term for it. She called it like cleansing her like a cat. Okay, and these maniacs started saying things like, why if you're panting naked every night with her for a year, why don't you make love to her? And I decided to make it an issue because she shied off, and I understood, not to cross the line in the sand was my duty as a person who was in love with someone, if she was coy. And they said he wanted some. Robert Fripp dropped his pick and said, I felt through the effervescences that he wanted some. And that means virginity proves rape. And they started bombing Iraq. You should have seen George Bush. Colin Powell gets on 60 Minutes with Patricia's sister, says, yes, Crowley is getting me in trouble. He's supposed to be an important person, and he has wires and he's sending signals. I begged Martha Gellhorn to show some common decency and common sense about the outrage that they were visiting on me with their hooligan death threats. They ended up giving me Parkinson's, and they make it so that I don't dare go anywhere where senior citizens are allowed to be fed in the state of Washington because the controllers believe that's their food. He's trying to get some. He's crossing the line. And this mentality is shrieking crazy. It's shrieking crazy. They have absolutely no foundation for it when it comes to me. I never boxed the ears of somebody who took a girl from me. I still loved Raymond when he made off with Lisa. I still loved him as much more than her. When Jeannie was with me for 6 years, I was perfectly happy man being with a woman who was just my best friend. Made no attempts to change that or challenge it or care. I was heartbroken. When Leslie left, I let her go. When Rosa left, I let her go. I cried. And this, they said, wasn't healing correctly. When I had money when I was home, so I went through several months without any ID where I had no money at all, but I shared. I gave people candy bars when I had a few extra bucks. That's the way I've always been. When I asked them to pay me for my work and my injuries in a common, decent way because I'm deaf and never made nearly as much money as the waiters did as a dishwasher. They never shared the tips with me, nothing of the kind. What did they say? They said he wants some of our black market pornographic genocide movies. Well, we'll have to see about that. Oh, they love to say that. And they murdered a girl in Seattle over a penny. They built momentum for Nosferatu, and who were their cheering section to this day? George Galloway and Owen Jones. Don't make any mistake. They are stupid people with their aristocratic stupidities. Reagan knew all about it. Don't let them lie to you. He was foundational cock and bull artist who used Hollywood in a plan that dates back to the Italian futurists. In Fayum, he built a counterfeit reality that we're told we have no choice but to live in.